We're in Chesney, South Carolina at Vic's Classic Cars, exploring legends from the Big Three, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. It's all right now on Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. I'm Steve Mignonti, hot rod historian, author, and lover of all things cars. I travel all across the country to uncover the forgotten and hidden gems of the automotive world. And now, I'm on the hunt for the next Roadkill Junkyard Rescue project. This is Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. On this episode of Roadkill's Junkyard Gold, we're in Chesney, South Carolina at Vic's Classic Auto. This yard has been in business for over 40 years, and there are literally 1,000 old cars parked in the woods here. They're frozen in time. I've heard talk of a very special mid-size Pontiac muscle car, and it's not a GTO, a Mustang that's a dead ringer for a famous movie car, a surf-themed Dodge from the 1970s, and a four-door muscle car that's going to blow your mind. And as always, I'll be looking for the next Roadkill Rescue. Well, there's over 1,000 cars to look at. I can't wait to see what we find. Let's get started. A 62 Chevy four-door, no 409s and 62 on four-door cars. So this is going to be a small block or a six-cylinder. About a 39 or a 40 Ford, suicide front axle on that one. Mustang Mach 1, almost a flat sports roof on these things from 71 through 73. Oh, and look at this, a Dart Sport, but this graphic on the back, this is a Hang 10, surfs up. These things have one of the wildest interiors of all Mopars. We got to check this thing out. The mid-'70s were a really hard time for Detroit performance. In other words, there was about nothing happening, so most of the manufacturers decided if you can't be fast, you can be fun. Now, the reference to Hang 10, well, it's a surfing term for riding a wave and hanging your toes over the edge of the surfboard, Hangin' 10. The Hang 10 option package was available on Dart Sports in 1973 and 74. The key thing was that it had nothing to do with the engine or suspension or chassis. It was all about the trim inside the car and certain external graphics. And what we see inside of these cars is woven inserts on the white vinyl on the seats and the door panels. The dashboard was painted orange. That's not some kid with a spray can. That's what Dodge put on these cars. And most crazy of all, they all came with this orange shag carpet. This is not from some tree house. This is the way these cars were built. Crazy orange shag, just like Freiberger's had when he was a kid. Now, records show that about 1,200 of these cars were built. The option code is A63, and for all of $254, you got all this trim inside and a very special fold-down back seat. Check this out. Pull this lever, down this comes, and you get pass-through to the back of the trunk. The idea being, you stick your surfboard in here, go to the beach, go surfing. Now, under the hood of these cars, well, no big blocks, no Hemis. It was pretty bland. Let's take a look. Before I open the hood, let's take a peek at the faded graphics. These would have been red and blue, kind of a bicentennial theme. Of course, the bicentennial 1976 was right around the corner. Okay, this is the mid-range 318 two-barrel with 145 horsepower. Other engines you could have found in this would have been the Slant 6, the 225, or in 1973, the 340, or in 74, the 360. Those are high-performance engines. But this one here is the bread and butter V8. It's all good. Other things I see here are manual disc brakes. A lot of folks don't realize that Chrysler would sell you a car with non-power assisted disc brakes. Took a lot of leg pressure to make those brakes work. Power steering, regular heater, no air conditioning. This has the 904 automatic transmission. No manual transmissions in Hang 10s. They were all automatics. And one way we can prove if it's a Hang 10 or not is we would look at the trim tag. We want to see code A63. Well, the trim tag on this one has turned to vapor. It is gone. So we can't verify this by the trim tag. But for my 10 cents, this is a very real, original A63 Hang 10 car. It's very complete, pretty well-preserved example of a 318 Dart Sport. I think as far as a Roadkill Rescue goes, this car is a little too far gone for Freiberger and Finnegan to take it seriously. I think they'd just find it to be too rusty, too incomplete to be done in one episode. But if it were my car, well, I think I'd have to restore it. I would lavish the details, send it off to a restoration shop, and I'd spend the $100,000 it would take, if I had it, to bring this to $20,000 worth of value. After all, only 1,200 of these cars were built, and the Hang 10 registry says that 56 are known. Well, make that 57. But again, it's a rare car, and it's a snapshot of how people were thinking in the 1970s when orange shag carpeting was considered cool. This car sure is a long way from the beach. Let's see what else we can find. This is pretty cool. This is a, wow. This is a racing wheel. This is the kind of wheel that you would either run on an open-wheeled modified or potentially a Grand National stock car. This is not something I'd find in Massachusetts in the junkyard, but we're in South Carolina here. This is NASCAR country. This wheel is a 15 by 12-inch wheel. This is an aftermarket racing wheel. Kind of cool. It's got a double spider, which means that the center is doubled up. We can see here it's 2 plies welded together to make this thing as strong as it can be, because with a 12-inch wide sticky racing tire, the amount of load this thing sees could bend a normal wheel. But again, the stuff you'll find on the ground in a junkyard is a function of where that junkyard is. This is NASCAR country. '56 Ford pickup truck. This cab, whenever you see that built-in visor, that's a 1-year cab, 1956 only. One of the yard employees told me to be on the lookout for a '62 Imperial. He said that there was once a lot of moonshine running here in South Carolina, and this car apparently was a rum runner. He says, open the trunk, and let's see what we got here. Yeah, that's not a gas tank, that's not a gas tank. These apparently are the storage tanks for illegal moonshine. You can see your little spigot on the bottom, which you'd open up, you drain it out here. What guys would do back in the day to get around the revenue tax on moonshine is they'd make their own and then transport it in cars like this. Now, these cars apparently would get involved in some high-speed chases, so this car, I see, has been fortified a little bit beyond stock Imperial specs. Inside, it's basically stock. I do see a NASCAR-style headrest, and this right here, this button, when you push that down, that kills the brake light. So if you're driving the car at night and you're being chased by the police, you want to lose them, push that button down, kills the back half of the car so the cops don't see you getting away. Running from the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. In stock trim, the Imperial would have had a 413 big block with a 4-barrel carburetor, dual exhaust, and 340 horsepower. Something that was not born here from the factory is that dual circuit master cylinder with the power booster. And I see front disc brakes. The original 12-inch drums, which were okay but not great for spirited driving, have been replaced on this thing with disc brakes from a later 60s Imperial car. Up front, the inboard headlights are these yellow fog lights. At night, these do a better job of illuminating trees, creatures, roadblocks, spike strips, whatever it might be. I can see Freiberger and Finnegan driving this thing with a load of moonshine, some white lightning, flying through the night, making a run. Yeah, this is roadkill Southern style. Now this is pretty cool. This stripe right here tells us something very, very special. The emblem here reads Sprint 6. This is a Pontiac Le Mans Sprint, a junior supercar before such a thing even existed. And that 6, that's about the engine. Is it still here? Oh, yeah. This engine is the Sprint 6 with the optional 4-barrel. While the GTO was stealing headlines, this was the truly sophisticated muscle car in the Pontiac lineup for 1966 through 69. Now, this engine right here is the world's first overhead cam 6-cylinder engine with a fiberglass reinforced belt drive. Pontiac patented this belt drive, and most of the cars that drive today with overhead cams use this technology. Now, the Sprint 6 was available with a single-barrel carburetor with 165 horsepower. That's how most of them were. This one has the optional 4-barrel. Better yet, the split exhaust manifold is still there. That helps to increase horsepower by reducing back pressure. So this thing would have had a quadrajet 4-barrel, the high-performance camshaft, 10.5-to-1 compression, dual exhaust, 207 horsepower, and 6,500 RPM redline. This is a very exotic inline 6, and I'm blown away that it's still here under the hood of this car. Now, these engines were available with a few different transmissions. Let's take a peek and see what we got inside. All right, floor-shifted transmission. The base transmission in the Sprint 6 would have been a 3-speed manual. There was an automatic possible, or this, the $184 4-speed on the floor. But this is not the Muncie M21 you'd think. That would have had a 220-to-1 first gear. Instead, with the 6-cylinder engine, Pontiac used the Saginaw 4-speed, which had an iron case and a 3.11-to-1 first gear, which actually helped to crutch the low-end torque of this engine to give it better acceleration. With the overhead cam cylinder head on this one, you could go to 6,500 RPM. By contrast, the pushrod 6-cylinder this engine replaced, that was used in 65 and before, would only go to about 5,000 RPM. So this was a revving engine. Now, this engine was available in all mid-size Pontiacs except station wagons, but yes, you could buy a 4-door Le Mans or Tempest with the 4-speed 4-barrel Sprint motor if you wanted it. But for my dollars, this 2-door Le Mans hardtop is the most natural home for it. Now, if you were a muscle car guy back in the 60s, you'd buy a GTO with the 389 or the 400. But if you had a discriminating taste and you kind of like sports cars and muscle cars, you'd buy the Sprint. $126 is all it took to get this engine in any mid-size Pontiac in the mid-1960s. A lot of guys went for the GTO. I think I might have gone for the Sprint. These are cool. Here's the thing. Over the years, I've seen more than a few of these cars transformed into GTO clones. It's a shame. These are very significant cars. Now, keep in mind, I'm only talking about the 4-barrel version of this engine. The 1-barrel, let it go. So I take this thing right back to factory showroom stock. It would cost a lot more money than the car's ever worth, but being a purist, this car deserves it. That's what I'd do. The remains of a Firebird here. Whenever you see this on the front fender, you're talking Trans Am. Every time. Tri-5 Chevys are legendary. They're dynasty, 1955, 6, and 7. People love these cars. And a 57 4-door wagon. Look at this front bumper. This tree has grown between the radiator wall and the bumper. Look at that. Unbelievable. Nature wins. Oh, how cool is this? 283 emblem on the fender. That's not factory stock. This is probably somebody's old hot rod. What do we got inside here? Okay, clutch pedal, brake pedal, a hole in the floor. This had a 4-speed in it one time. Now, in 57, Chevy did not sell 4 on the floors except for Corvettes. This would have been a column-shifted car of one kind or another. But hey, guys added that. What a cool car. Oh, man. M&H Race Masters and chrome reverse wheels. Look at this. These wheels were once bright, shiny, chrome, and M&H stands for Marvin and Harry Rifkin, out of Massachusetts. And when you wanted slicks and you wanted to go fast, you went to M&H. So I see here, the center of this axle has 4 nubs, which tells us there's an Oldsmobile axle under this 57 Chevy wagon. It's a much stronger piece. It bolts right in from a 56, 7, 8 Oldsmobile. And right here, here's an old center section. The wide gear here is probably a 456 or somebody's drag racing gears. Look at this, the poor man's posse. The spider gears inside of this here turn at different speeds, so the differential is a differential. Well, if you want a poor man's posse and both those tires to bite 100%, you weld the spider gears, which we can see has been done right here. So this thing, when it came in here 30 or 40 years ago, was somebody's drag car. Unbelievable. What a sad thing to see it in the junkyard. Oh, no way. A Renault Le Car. This thing right here. The first car I ever owned with my name on the title was my mom's old Renault Le Car. These things are French, of course, and the trouble is, these have a 4-cylinder engine. The exhaust pipe comes out here behind the front tire. When the pipe rusts out, the dealerships didn't know enough not to use flex pipe and U-bolts. When that U-bolt was too long, the studs from the bolts would cut into the left tire and pop it when you made a left-hand turn. I went to the dealership, and the guy says to me, hey, if you don't like flat tires, don't make left-hand turns. So there's no way I'll ever have another one of these things. I mean, what car has 3 lug nuts? 3 lug nuts. What a mixture. A 55 Ford to about a 78 or a 79 Chrysler Cordoba with fine Corinthian leather. Ford launched the 2nd-generation Mustang in 1971, and here's a whole bunch from here. Mach 1 fastback with the roof chopped off. These are way bigger than Gen 1 Mustangs. These are 5 inches longer, 3 inches wider. But this one here, I love the Mach 1 graphic on this. And when you see Mach 1 on a 71 through 73 Mustang, you're looking at the muscle car version. If ever there was a movie that was Roadkill before Roadkill came out, it was Gone in 60 Seconds. Not the reboot movie, rather the original from 1974. H.B. Halicki, an L.A. junkyard owner, decided to make a film featuring car crashes. Something like 70 or 80 cars were smashed and crashed, and the movie was culminated by a jump in one of these cars, a medium gold metallic Mustang. Great movie. Gone in 60 Seconds. Go check it out. Now, Mach 1 meant V8 power, 302 two-barrel at the very least, but these could be mild or wild. To find out what you're looking at, you add up the clues. Now, the trunk lid of this one here, we see the witness marks for the pedestals of the trunk spoiler, which was an option on all Mach 1s. Going further, there was something called competition suspension. And when you had that on a Mach 1, the rear shock absorbers were staggered, one before and one after the axle to help counter axle hop on hard acceleration. This one here, well, we see both shock absorbers are ahead of the axle, which means it's a non-competition suspension vehicle. So that rules out heavy-duty horsepower, but that's not the end of the hunt. Transmission choices consisted of a 3 or a 4-speed manual or an automatic. All of them shifted at the floor, as we see here. In fact, from 1964 and a half all the way up to present time, Mustang has never had a column shifted. They're all floor shifted, maintaining the sporty theme. Now, I see this one here. The pedals have been harvested, so I'm going to bet this car was probably a 4 on the floor. Of course, the engine is the heart of the matter on any car or Mustang. Let's take a look and see what we have. The second-gen Mustang could be had with a 429 Cobra Jet, which would make this really desirable. But this one here being a 1972, well, that engine was dropped as the muscle car movement faded away. Now, how do we find out which one we have? We go to the VIN's 5th spot. Here we see the letter H, which tells us this was born with the 351 two-barrel Cleveland engine. Not a bad engine, better than the 302 two-barrel, but not as good as the Q code 351 four-barrel, which would be the optimum engine in this car. There's a popular misconception that the Mach 1, being the muscle car version of the Mustang, would have come standard with front disc brakes. Not true, you paid extra for those. This one here shows the cast iron 10-inch drum brakes, which were standard on all Mustangs, including the Mach 1. But one thing that did come standard on all 351 Mustangs is the domed hood. If you got the F code 302, you got a flat hood, but the domed hood was available as a no-cost upgrade if you wanted it. Now, this car here, being an H code 351 two-barrel, would have had factory cold air. Check this out. The four-barrel engine, the M code, would not have had functional ram air, but the two-barrel car did. It was about emissions. Now, these holes in the front would have had inserts with an opening that ran cool air into the top of the air cleaner, so the two-barrel carburetor would get a little cooler air, denser air, and make a little more power. Now, this hood here shows a sign where a telephone pole or a tree ended this Mustang's life, but I love the faded muscle car plumage, the Mach 1 graphics, the decay. I think as far as a Roadkill Rescue goes, well, Dave and Mike already have the discuss tag. I don't think they want another Mustang in the fleet. This car is just too far gone. Let's leave it right here and keep walking. Some 1940s Plymouths here, Studebaker, pretty cool. And yeah, look at this. This car probably had about a 25-mile-an-hour impact to deform the metal that hard. I bet we look inside, we see the steering wheel is bent. Most people don't like to be told what to do, but in my case, I'm a firm believer that seatbelts save lives. We can see here the steering wheel is deformed, and that's what happened when this car stopped suddenly. The driver's ribs or abdomen hit that and bent the steering wheel. Now, the first seatbelts were pioneered by a man named Edward Cleghorn in 1885 in New York City for use in taxi cabs. In 1949, Nash offered them for the first time, and in 1955, Ford also offered seatbelts. But it took until 1966 for the federal government to mandate lap belts in all American cars. And in 1969, shoulder belts came on as mandatory equipment and finally solved the problem. But again, seatbelts save lives. Ford ranch wagon with the Ford-O-Matic, first seen in 1952. Ford's first automatic transmission, right here, two-door wagon. And a big old Plymouth Grand Sedan. Now, the baby blue paint on this car doesn't fool me. I'm seeing traces of black and white paint. This might well be a cop car. We gotta open the hood and find out. Oh yeah, the 440. This is a police car. We look here at these trim tags and we see it says body in white, special mask, special paint, special order. These were known as police pursuits. The term police interceptor is a Ford term, so you don't want to call a Mopar cop car an interceptor. These are called police pursuits, to be proper about it. Now, the engine in this one here is the 440. Optional motors in police cars would have been the 360 two-barrel, the 360 four-barrel, 400, but this is the top dog. The 440 was first used in Plymouth police cars in 1967 and really was the hottest engine ever used in a Mopar cop car. They never put Hemis in cop cars during the 60s and 70s. Carburetor is a thermoquad. It's a Carter. Heavy-duty cooling everywhere. It has air conditioning, the heavy-duty torque flight transmission. But this 440 engine right here, it's the same basic engine that was also used in the Plymouth Superbird, the six-pack Cuda, all those great Mopar muscle cars. Of course, by 1974, this engine was detuned with lower compression, and it made 250 horsepower. But again, this engine with higher compression, a better cam, headers, and an intake can come right back to 400 horsepower in an afternoon of bolt-ons. Standard issue wheels on these police cars were 15 by 7-inch steel rims. Regular family sedans would have had a 15 by 6 or a 6.5-inch wheel on a station wagon. Now, these wheels are not to be confused with the Mopar Cop wheel that a lot of you Mopar guys will remember as having 6 slots. Those rims came out around 1975-76, a couple years after this car existed, so they weren't available yet. More evidence that proves this is a police car is seen on the VIN. The VIN reads PM41, and that tells us this is a 4-door sedan police car. PM is the code for cop cars. Inside, we see the speedometer reads all the way to 140 miles per hour, and it is certified. That means the officers, when they're driving in a high-speed pursuit, can glance at the speedometer, remember what they see, and that's legally admissible in court. These cars were tested by the Michigan State Police, and these went 147 miles per hour in official testing in 1974. And this was one of the fastest police cars of all time, only beaten in 2006 by the Dodge Hemi Charger. Now, this is a 4-door, and cop cars are some of the best muscle cars around, but the trouble is, most people assume muscle cars are 2-doors, sporty models. Well, these are the best engineered, most high-performance vehicles you can buy, police cars. And the thing about this one here, this Grand Sedan, this is a full-size C-body. We showed you last year a B-body Plymouth Fury cop car, 78 440 car. That was a shorter, smaller car on a 118-inch wheelbase. These C-bodies are on a 122-inch wheelbase. You gotta remember that officers spent as many as 10, 12 hours in these cars per day. So the longer the wheelbase, the gentler the ride, the better they like the car. This 74 Plymouth 440 Pursuit is awesome. It reminds us that muscle cars and police cars are one and the same, just that police cars are more plain and they hide in plain sight. They have heavy-duty suspension, heavy-duty drivetrains. This one has the 440, so I think what I do is give it a driver-quality restoration, spray it in black and white, put Roadkill Pursuit on the side, and then I'd follow Freiberg and Finnegan. I'd dog them across the country, making sure they obey the speed limit, or not. Big full-size Mercury with a 429 2-barrel and single exhaust. Yeah, they built them. Here's one here. And this, believe it or not, this could well be a Studebaker. While we think of Studebakers for building cars in the 20th century, during the 19th century, a lot of Studebaker wagons were sold to people who moved west with the gold rush. So chances are, if your family lives in California and went there in the 1800s, they might have gone in a Studebaker. The best thing about this kind of Studebaker is if you want to double the horsepower, just hitch up another horse to the front of it. What the hell is this? Okay, a Chevy Nova on a Ford pickup truck frame. Okay, this was once a 350 Nova. We see that much. Looks like it's a 1974. Okay, the rear axle, that's a Ford 9-inch rear axle. The frame looks like a half-ton frame. Inside, okay, thank goodness it's not a 4-speed SS 350. That would be a shame to squander one of those things. This was a bench seat automatic Nova. Front suspension on this is leaf springs with a beam axle. So this looks to be a Ford frame, a half-tonner from the days before the twin I-beam. So that would put it 63 back to 57. So it looks like some wild-eyed Southern boys probably got some moonshine flowing and decided they'd put a Chevy Nova on top of a Ford pickup truck frame and started the job but didn't finish it. Well, guess what? I think this would make a good roadkill rescue. Freiberger and Finnegan, get the moonshine flowing, finish the dream, make it real. I want to see big fat tires on this thing and you guys blowing donuts in the mud here in South Carolina. Make it happen. This is cool. While there's a ton of automotive history here at Vic's Classic Cars, we still have a lot of yards to check out all over the country. That's it for this episode of Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. Thanks for watching. But this thing was part of the southern, yeah. Okay, that's kind of nasty. Let me just, it keeps on giving.